You're listening to the Renegade Blitz, the best podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on RenegadeBlitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
All right, welcome to the Renegade Blitz podcast. I'm doing the intro today. Ty has something going on, so I'm here with Brandon Walker as always, and we're joined here tonight by head men's basketball coach at North Carolina Cebtral University, Levelle Moton, who's also a Steelers fan and close friend with Mike Tomlin. Tonight's podcast will cover Levelle's coaching bond with Tomlin, black head coaches in the pros and college level, HBCUs, and we'll also have some basketball talk. So, Levelle, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I remember reading the Undefeated article with about you and Tomlin a couple months ago. You were someone that we wanted to have on the show for a while, but I really appreciate you coming on.
No, thank you guys so much, man. I follow your page, and I guess all us Steelers fans, we connect somewhere down the road. So it's truly a pleasure and an honor to be here with you guys.
Yeah, so to start things off, how did you become a Steelers fan, and how did you get to know Tomlin?
Wow, man, I'm originally from Boston. I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, man, and from the south end in a housing project called Orchard Park projects at the time. And when you think of Boston, you hear about Fenway and Paul Revere and the Tea Parties and all of that stuff, but you ain't hear about the neighborhood that I was from. And one day they took us to Foxborough. They took all the kids in the hood to Foxborough, and we were going to see the Patriots play. And it was our first time ever, out of our hood. It was fascinating to us. And the Patriots was playing the Steelers. And after the game, we had our little brochures. I don't know if y'all remember the little programs with the brochures and all that. So we all had our little programs and brochures, and we was waiting for some Patriot players to sign them. And a couple of Patriot players walked by, and I was hanging down the tunnel, trying to get them to sign my program, and they walked right by me, right? He looked at me and just walked right. And I can't tell you what I told them at the time, because we was some 10-year-old kids with some smart mouths. But I was like, yo, that's messed up. You know what I'm saying? It's our first time out. We just seeing Patriot football players, and they never signed our stuff. And here come Steelers fans later on, and they were just signing everything, right? And I was like, yo, this is cool. And so I just became a Steelers fan off that moment, right? And so when I migrated down to North Carolina, I just stayed a Steelers fans. And then by this time, it's 79, 80. This is the Lynn Swan, the Star Wars, and, they had just beat the Rams. And everyone down here in North Carolina, because at the time, North Carolina didn't have a football team. It was almost like you either like the Steelers, the Cowboys, or the Redskins, right? Those were the local stations. And I just fell in love with the Steelers, man, with Franco, Rocky Blige, Ham, Levin, Lynn Swan. I would go in my backyard and duplicate Lynn Swan and Donnie Shell, everybody. So I just became a Steelers fanatic from that point. And to answer the second half of your question, the way I met Mike, it was really surreal, man. In this coaching business, it's all kind of, intertwined. And, there was a guy at Duke when I first got my job at North Carolina Cebtral. He was the wide receivers coach. His name was Scotty Montgomery. Oh. He ended up going to the Steelers, becoming the wide receivers coach up there. And he had reached out to me. He said, man, Mike want to meet you. And I was like, who is Mike? Who are you talking about? And he was like, Mike Tomlin. So I was like, man, that's cool. I'm a Steelers fan. I go on the road and we're recruiting. I'm close with John Calipari, so I'm sitting beside John Calipari at the time. What I didn't know at the time is John Calipari is from Pittsburgh. I did not know that, right? And he told me that. So we're just sitting, watching the AAU game and eating and talking and chatting. And I said, man, what you doing when you leave here? He said, man, I'm going back to Pittsburgh. I was like, what you mean back to Pittsburgh? He said, I'm from Pittsburgh. I said, oh, wow, that's crazy. I'm a Steelers fan. He said, are you? He said, I go to training camp every year. And he said, you got to meet Mike because you would love Mike. And I was like, you're the second person to say that. He said, hold on, let me call him right now. So in true Calipari form, he just called Mike, and Mike was like, "Look, man, I'm a huge fan." I was like, "Nah, I'm a huge fan of yours." So there was already a mutual respect and admiration. And he got my number. We exchanged. He called me. He said, "Man, I want you to come up to camp. Let's learn from each other." And what a lot of people don't know is I respect him and appreciate him so much because when I was hired at North Carolina Cebtral in 2009, I had a short resume. I was only like a middle school coach and a high school coach prior to, and an AAU coach for a couple of years. So it wasn't sexy and popular to hire a coach that would be the youngest coach in the nation, right? And during that year, that's when Mike won the Super Bowl, right? And so what happens when someone of his caliber wins the Super Bowl at such a young age? He made it fashionable for everyone else. And so here was a guy that looked like me, who came from similar backgrounds as me, and here he is on the national stage winning a Super Bowl. And I think that's the reason North Carolina Cebtral hired me, because I didn't have a long resume, right? And I'm thankful for that. And so we just became friends. I go up to Latrobe I missed the last 2 years because of COVID, so I didn't want to disrupt that. But I go up to Latrobe every year, man, and he's been phenomenal to me because mostly you have a mentor in this business, and oftentimes coaches' mentors are someone that they played for or coached under. I didn't have that opportunity, right? I didn't come into this business wanting to be a coach, right? And so I just kind of sought him out. So he's been my mentor for basketball, which is kind of odd, but it's really the best thing because he's not competition. I learned so much more from him because I've learned quality control. Seeing him in a room of grown men, right? Like, because football players are different. Like, let's just get this out the way. Like, football players are different, right? Like, so the closest thing to a basketball player are the wide receivers. So when I go to camp, I always, go and interact with the wide receivers. I go into their meetings and so on and so forth because they're the mostly divas. They're the ones who want the ball all the time, and that's the basketball players, right? But I remember seeing James Harrison, and I'm like, we're walking down the hallway at the same time. James Harrison, this in the dorm. He had his shirt off, and he's coming from the laundry room, and I was like, I just jumped on the wall like this, like, man, please don't bump into, like, because it just football players, it's almost like they're barbaric. You got to be crazy to run into somebody for a living at full speed, right? And it's just, but when Mike walks in a room, he's the greatest communicator I've ever seen in my life, right? Ever. And it's natural. It's him. It's who he is. So he's not searching and putting on for a camera. Y'all know, like his one-liners, and he can say punchlines that mean so much. And that was some of the things that I needed. I needed to learn how to deal with the media. I needed to learn how to speak with the media. I needed to learn how to have a great relationship with my best player, right? I needed to learn quality control, how to manage an entire team. I needed to know when to have a pulse on my team. Am I pushing them too hard? Do the guys need a day off, right? All of those things I pretty much learned from him. And then the value of film, right? Because I thought early on in my career, I watched too much film. And I thought that was such a thing. I watched so much film, I was fooling myself. But I seen how he worked and how he delegate responsibilities and things of that nature. And I needed to learn that as well, to delegate responsibilities to my coach, because I was used to doing everything. And so I was just fortunate to come into a relationship in an organization that I love and truly respect, that I'm also a fan of and just learned so much from. So I got the highest respect for Mike Tomlin. I'm his number one fan. He's been my brother, a mentor, one of the dearest friends ever. Him and his wife and his kids, they're just incredible to me.
And so we're going to talk about some of like the Rooney Rule and the black head coaches in the NFL and the floor is higher and everything. Tomlin, 15 years with the Steelers, no losing seasons. That's a record for a coach to begin his career in the NFL. What do you think he means to black coaches across all sports?
You broke up on the last part. What was the?
Oh, what do you think he means? As far as for black coaches across all sports?
He's everything, right? It's so much that he does for black coaches that you guys don't even know, right? He's not going to get on the microphone and broadcast it. But the story that I have, he's done that for multiple guys. And that's what we've missed. We never somehow or another, the BCA, the Black Coaches Association, that's kind of dwindled. On the football side of things, on the amateur side of things, on the professional side of things, and also in basketball, it's kind of dwindled, right? And so we need someone to have a voice and have a coach's tree that and be that example and also that mentor. Is really, really difficult for him. And oftentimes I don't even do interviews where I talk about him because I don't want people to think my thoughts are his thoughts, right? And I don't want people to think the opinions of Levelle Moton is coming from Mike Tomlin, because that's how much respect I have for him. So I don't normally do those type of interviews. And he's done so much for me and my family and other coaches and their family that they don't make them like that anymore, because a lot of guys, when they get in those positions, especially positions of power, especially like him, they just entertain themselves and do their normal job. And I'm not mad at that, but he always reaches back. And that's one of the beautiful things about him. He's never forgotten where he's come from, right? And I think he always remembered that struggle. So when he saw me, he saw a Mike Tomlin, but just in the form of basketball. Right. And so he means the world to me. He means the world to other coaches across the country, because I think the problem right now in sports, in terms of coaching, is that if you are a Black man in a leadership position, you have to be, especially in the NFL, you have to be truly exceptional. Right. You have to be really, really exceptional. Like, just think about it. For a while, there was such a stigma and perception on the Black quarterback. Right. And that's why they never allowed it, because let's be honest and let's address the elephant in the room. They didn't think Black players were smart enough to play that position. Right. And that's what it was. Right. So they didn't think Black players were smart enough to play that position. Right. So if you were a quarterback and you made it to the NFL, they instantly tried to switch your position, period, right? And now if you are a Black coach, you truly have to be exceptional, right? You can't be mediocre, or you can't be average. Other coaches can be average. But Mike Tomlin have to have his whole tenure without a losing season. Like just think about that, never having a losing season, right? And so this is where I kind of get in trouble, because I'm so emotional and passionate for him that he'll never say this. But I just think it's completely unfair, right? Like, and so now the quarterback position is filled with the Deshaun Watsons and the Lamar Jacksons and the Mahomes and, the Russell Wilsons and all those things, those type of guys. But they're all exceptional. There are no more Lamar Jacksons, right, that I've seen out here. Right. So they're all truly exceptional. And the moment they're no longer exceptional, then they're going to be out the door too. It's not you don't, as a Black quarterback, you don't get the opportunity to go just be a backup for 15 years. Right. And just sit over there and hold the clipboard. Like, nah, that's not what it is. You have to be truly exceptional. And I just think Black coaches, John Thompson said this a long time ago. He said Black coaches deserve the right to fail too. Right. And that's just what it is. So for Mike to only be, 2 or 3 coaches now in the NFL that's Black?
Was it
Five?
Yeah.
5.
I think minority at their
minority. You have, we're going to get to that question, to get to that issue next. I think who we have: Lovie Smith, Tomlin,
Bowles.
So
McDaniel from Miami.
Yeah. So that's
we
4.
can say what we want. He classifies as he's Black. And who's the 5th one?
Sala and Rivera are
they're not.
Yeah.
They're not minorities. But anyway,
right.
How do you feel, Levelle, about him hiring? You just alluded to him hiring, giving an olive branch to Brian Flores. How did you feel? What do you think? I know you knowing him as long as you have, it doesn't surprise you, but put it this way. What do you think? I know I don't want to get you in trouble. The NFL and their hiring practices for coach African Americans.
In terms of the NFL?
NFL.
Oh, I think you have to. I mean, just the fact that you asking the question, you already understand there's a glitch, right?
Trust me.
Right. It's something that needs to be improved. And it's not just the NFL. It's college basketball. It's professional, but it's everywhere, right? It's everywhere. It's in any tech company. You know what I'm saying? It's at, these, I don't even want to call people by name, but these large corporations, it's the same thing. Like, so it's all across the board. And that's why guys like Mike, is so important. I just think, the one of the toughest things too is the Rooney Rule has, for whatever it's worth, it's great when it's implemented. But I think a lot of times it's tough to force the hand of someone who owns the team. So if it was up to me, I would just allow more Black owners to own teams and hire who they want instead of trying to twist the arms of someone that has shown a history of this is not our type of candidate. This is not someone that we're willing to hire, right? And so I think it makes matters even worse sometimes when you kind of forcing owners to hire someone because the first mistake they make, they're gone anyway. Right. And so that's even a blemish on their resume to say, okay, they got a shot. And in this league and around, once you get an opportunity, you may not get another one if you fail. Right. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of even worse. So I would much rather have Black people and minority ownership, right? Instead of implementing a minority rule for someone that don't look like us, because a lot of people think it's racism. Let's address the elephant in the room. And I don't know. That may be the case in some things, but I do know this. A lot of times it may be racist, but it's also familiarity, right? Yeah. Because just speaking about it from our perspective, on our level, the decision makers don't look like us. The presidents of these universities don't look like me, right? The athletic directors of these Power 5 universities don't look like me. I don't even know how many Power 5 athletic directors there is that's Black, right? And then not many. And let's be even more honest. The boosters, right, that pump the money into programs, they don't look like us, right? And so when we utter the words or the phrase, hey, let's go do lunch, or I'm going to invite you over to my house, like, we only invite people that we're comfortable with and that we know and have a familiarity. So a lot of times it's not racism, it's familiarity or lack thereof, right? If you're a president of a university, may be, let's say, a 65, 70-year-old white male, right? So let's put that into perspective. A 70-year-old white male is the late 40s, early 50s. That's when he was born into America, right? So he's born into a segregated America. He's born into a Jim Crow. He's born before a Brown versus Board of Education. Right. He's born before a Voting Housing Act, a Fair Housing Act, Voting Rights Act, a Civil Rights. He's born way before that. So he's been shielded. And we all are just a sum total of our life experiences. So now whatever's worked for him, he don't have much interaction with Black men from housing projects such as myself, right? And so perception becomes reality because the news every day from 6 to 6:18, they're not reporting anything positive about people that look like me that come from those conditions, right? And so it plants a negative seed, it plants a negative connotation. And so it's easier to say, I'd rather hire from someone within my wheelhouse that I know, that I'm familiar with, that someone I know who can give a recommendation to this guy, so on and so forth. And that's the nepotism that's passed down from generation to generation. And now we often find ourselves on the outside looking in.
Oh, trust me, I know. But what is I was always wanted to know the difference, because you're at HBCU college at Jones. What is the difference? What is the challenges that you guys would have rather than being at a Power 5 school? Like when it comes to university, like endowment or athletic programs, because sometimes you guys have good teams, but sometimes your record isn't as good as it is because you gotta. What I'm trying to be political. You guys gotta. You gotta play them big schools to get that check. I'm just
right. What you're calling them are guaranteed games, right? And so at every HBCU, or mostly 98% of the HBCUs, how we sustain our budget, our operating budget, is in football. They go out and play one or two what they call guarantee games. That's what you're talking about, where we may play a larger school in a Power 5 conference, such as a Maryland or Carolina or Duke or whatever. And in basketball, there's a check that comes with that, right? It often comes with $85,000, $90,000, right? So let's say you play 4 of those games, you got $360,000 that you take back to your athletic budget, and that funds your budget, right? And so you couple that with football, football, it gets a little pricey. Like you go play Michigan, they got $110,000 up there. They might give you $800,000 to come back in. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little different in football. And so that money comes back, and that's how you sustain and operate your athletics budget with that. It's not the talent, really, right? A lot of times in football, if you watch the skill positions, for the most part, they're the same, or sometimes Power 5s may be bigger, faster, stronger. I get that. But the difference in football is the trenches, right? You can just watch the line of scrimmage, and when they say Huck 1, right? Alabama's line is going to push your HBCU's line, and that's the difference, right? So now it gives this quarterback a lot more time. It gives that receiver a lot more time to get open. Wow. You see what I'm saying? And so that's what HBCUs were. Initially, I don't know if you guys understand this, but HBCUs was established to give for alternative means of education because we weren't allowed in PWIs, predominantly white institutions, right? And so we established our own schools to provide ourselves with education and athleticism, right? That really changed, and everybody was fine with that. But that really changed probably in 1972. I don't know if you guys remember a guy by the name of Sam Cunningham.
He recently died.
I think
yes, because he went up USC. He played against Alabama, and they crushed him, embarrassed him.
There you go.
And then Bear Bryant came in and started.
John Mitchell, the Steelers defensive line coach, or he's
there you go.
He just got honored at Alabama this past weekend.
There you go.
A plaque there for him. But it was like early 70s. I think it took that long for.
So that was the game that changed it. Bear Bryant was like, "Hold on, shoot." I got to go get these guys. Because if you think about it, look at the first wave of Hall of Famers in the NFL. They were all HBCU.
Deacon Jones. You had
Deacon
Jones. You had Willie Lanier. He went to
HBCU.
Archino went to North. It's now UMES, but it was Maryland State University.
Right.
Maryland Eastern.
You got a coach like Eddie Robinson, who was at Grambling, who coached over 200 pros. Right. I mean, just think about Steelers organization is incredible. There's no organization on earth like the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, right? From top to bottom, the class, it's phenomenal, right? It's unreal. Look at and God bless Bill Nunn, right? The longtime scout. But look at the impact and contributions that HBCUs have had just with the Steelers organization. You got Mel Blount, L.C. Greenwood, John Stallworth, Donnie Shell, right? Where would we be without those guys? I don't know if we would have 6 of them things in that trophy case without, you know what I'm saying? So HBCUs have always been a major and primary contributor. And the difference, Brandon, to kind of address your question, it's always money. It's always going to be money and always going to be money and always going to be money, right? Because more money means better facilities. More money means more training tables. More money means more NIL now. This is crazy right now. Like, so now
Right.
you add in the NIL piece, and now you have these young men coming out of school where they're not even amateurs anymore. They're semi-pros, right? They're Will Ferrells. They're a bunch of semi-pros out here. A lot of these guys are making more money in school than they will when they ever turn pro, just based off NIL deals. I think Alabama's quarterback got $1 million deal last year, right? And so you're dealing with this thing, and so that's the challenge that's presented for HBCUs. It's always a money game, right? And so I just think if we can get some more funding within the state, if we can get some more donations, and all it takes are players, right? One player can change everything in basketball. Two, you saw that like with Michigan with the Final Five, with the Fab Five and their run. Because now when you go to the tournament, each time you advance, it doubles your pay. So you go from 500,000 to 1.5 million to 3 million to, so on and so forth, just by advancing in the NCAA tournament. And so those are the things that funds your program. And so it's just a matter of these kids understanding that, look, I can go anywhere and be productive because I'm the product, right? And for so long, schools have convinced these guys that the school and the coach are the products. Nah. It's not that. Right, the players, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and O's, and that's what we have to get back to understanding.
Right.
And Levelle, I was wondering, what's it like coaching basketball in the state of North Carolina? Because it's like a mecca for college basketball, high school. It's like the Texas almost, or it is, I think, for basketball. And it's kind of like a two-part question. Also, what's your relationships with North Carolina and Duke and Coach K? I remember during the Final Four, I was reading some of your tweets about some of your relationship with North Carolina.
Yeah, it's called a hoop state, and where we are in particular is called Tobacco Road. So they always say, I got a lot of respect for the Ravens and the Steelers rivalry, and all of that stuff. But there's no rivalry in sports like Carolina and Duke. Like it's absolutely unreal. So we're 5 minutes away from North Carolina and 10 minutes away from 10 minutes away from North Carolina, 5 minutes away from Duke. And the way I approached it was, if I'm a new startup business and I'm coming into a geographic region, and 5 miles away from me, I have Bill Gates, and 10 miles away from me, I have Warren Buffett, and I never reach out to them, then I'm a fool, right? That's how I just saw it, right? And so, I had prior relationships with Carolina because my cousin Donald Williams, he was the 1993 Final Four MVP. So he the one who helped defeat the Fab Five. And from that point on, I had friends, Jerry Stackhouse, Rasheed Wallace, Vince Carter, all those guys, right? Because we all played with each other and played against each other, coming up in the summer. And then on the other end of that spectrum, you have Duke, so I'm really good friends to this day with Grant Hill. We met in 1992, right? And so he was 5 minutes away, so we became good friends. When we weren't playing, he was on my campus. When I wasn't playing, I was on his campus watching him. And, back then we didn't have a lot of social media, so we all played basketball in the summer. That was our hobby and things of that nature. So you develop that relationship, and, I was a decent player in my time, and so players respect players. And to this day, we just got a great network, a great relationship, a great, fellowship. And I had the opportunity to do USA basketball twice, where I coached, Jason Tatum and guys like that, who's starring in the pros now. And so that's always been truly a blessing for me. And I developed another relationship with Coach K in the same capacity that I developed one with Mike. And, he took a liking to me. And Roy Williams, also at Carolina, he also took a liking to me. And so I've always been a relationship guy. I don't like burning bridges. I like cultivating and foster relationships because people make this world go round and people can help you. And, going back to Mike, this is crazy. I may have turned down maybe 8 or 9 jobs, since I've been at North Carolina Cebtral. Some higher, some tripled my money. Like it was some NBA jobs. But every time I have to decide, I call Mike Tomlin. Like that's the one person that I call and say, hey, such and such, this school is after me. What you think about that? He said, I think you might need to look at this one. I don't think you might need to look at that one. That's the guy that I call and lean on, right? Because it's I'm never going to make a decision based off money. But it's just always about my gut instinct, and my gut and my instinct has never lied to me, right? And I'm humble enough to be able to call him and walk through that process of pros and cons before I make those decisions. And a lot of times it was coming at me way too fast and I wasn't prepared for it, right? Because on our level, they move. Like, you have a good game and you go to the NCAA tournament. There was a school when we lost in the NCAA tournament, before I got on the bus, they had left 2 voicemails saying the AD and the president was going to meet me at my house tomorrow. I'm like, man, we ain't even got on the bus to go to the airport to come back to my. So I wasn't even ready for that. I was still sour that we lost, right? And so Mike has helped me expect the unexpected. He's helped me in preparation. He's helped me to know what we're looking for, so I'm never going to make an emotional decision. So he's the best, man. He's the absolute best.
And that's, I guess, how Brian Flores got the job with Tomlin, is that he called him asking for advice on, in his coaching, what his next step and everything. I guess that's when Tomlin said, why don't you come to Pittsburgh and, help us out? So that's pretty interesting, though.
Right. Oh, I was saying, what was these pickup games you was talking about? I heard you scored a game winner on Michael Jordan's team.
Yeah, man. It's that Tobacco Road thing, man. Like, so we in the summers we all go into one gym, and that's how we get better. Like, that's how we play. Like, everybody was competing at the highest of the high, and so MJ was always back in the summer, right? Because again, Carolina is his alma mater. So I just remember, wow, when did I first meet him? I met him in the summer, and it was the time that he was retired, but he was coming back playing basketball. His first retirement. I'm like, why you keep coming back here playing basketball if he retired? Because back then retired mean I'm done with it. I ain't never playing no more, right? And he just started coming back in the gym, working his way back. And then soon after, he announced that he was going pro. I mean, he was going back to the NBA, right? And so that wasn't the Michael Jordan that we was accustomed to seeing, because he was getting his legs back, getting the baseball out of him, getting back in shape. But then when he got back in shape, he would always come back, and he was extremely, extremely competitive. But hell, so was I and everybody else in there, right? It was a fight, right? That game went to 9, and it would take a long time, man. You had some alpha males in there, and a lot of people didn't want to be on MJ's team because they didn't want that pressure, right? Because what was going to happen was, and it always did, the game would go back and forth, right? And then nobody's really getting a whole lot of stops, and there's not a whole lot of separation. But once the game went to 9, but once that game got to like 7 to 6, and so on and so forth, if you was on Mike's team, you knew if he caught the ball, they were going to go double him, right? They were going to go double him. So he would have to pass the ball to the open man. And a lot of people didn't want that accountability or that responsibility of being the open man and missing a shot and letting Michael Jordan down. But I didn't care. I just wanted a shot. You know what I'm saying? So I was on his team, and oftentimes, when it got to that 7 or whatever, like before we checked the ball up, I'd be like, yo, I'm going to be here. Or he had trusted me enough to know, like, yo, the kid can play. He can really shoot the basketball. So he would always be like, Vale, make sure you cut back here. Make sure you cut there. Get in my eyesight here, blah, 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 blah. And so I just remember the first game when I hit on his team, they went and doubled. Shammond Williams went and doubled him. I think it was Jerry Stackhouse guarding him. And Shammond Williams went and doubled, and he kicked it to me. Shammond left me to go double him. And I told Shammond, I said, don't do that. I said, don't do that. I said, when you go double, you're going to go ahead and sit your ass down because I'm going to make it, right? And so MJ kicked it back to me, and I made the shot. And MJ said, hell yeah, Vale. Hell yeah. And I was like, yo, he called my name. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
like,
this is another question. This is off the cut. I want to know, since what is Michael Jordan really like, and how close? I mean, and how close are you guys? Do you see him as a mentor? I know it's a loaded question, but I always wanted to know if somebody who actually knows him would give us the inner workings of Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Man, like he's, from, I guess you saw the documentary.
Oh yeah.
And multiply that times 10 in terms of wanting to win and how like that's real. But we were all like that. We just want Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Like when you do it the way he did it, you just got a different story to tell. Everybody grew up wanting to be that man, because you got to understand, when I moved down here in the early 80s, he was now in college, right? And I was like, it was the game of the week, ACC game of the week, and I was always watching him. I was like, yo, this is crazy. Then when the shoes dropped and so on and so forth, I really couldn't afford a pair, right? But my mom went out and got me some, and it was just the thing to be. Everybody wanted to be like Mike, just like the Gatorade commercial and so on and so forth. So he always had this mystique and this awe about him that athletes nowadays don't have, because you can interact with your favorite athlete nowadays, right? If you tweet them enough or add them enough, or if you follow them enough, you kind of feel like you know them by looking at their IG or stories or whatever. Back then it wasn't that. So you only knew what they gave you. And back then they were so private, they didn't give you anything. So when you met them, it was like a aura around them, like when they walked in the room. And when I saw Mike, I was like, damn, that's really him. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I just kind of fanned out the first time I saw him, like, damn, dude, like this Michael Jordan, right? And so you think about him jumping from the free throw line and everything that you've seen as a kid, all the commercials, and he's right there, but he's just a human being after a while. You know what I'm saying? So he was great in the gym, man. I had the opportunity to work his camp a couple of times, when I got older, but he was always, it's true, man. He's one of the most competitive human beings I've ever seen in my life. And he wanted to win at everything, especially in pickup, right? And so back then we didn't have cameras in there or whatever, but it got crazy. It got hectic in there because everybody wanted to win. And after they threw that ball up, nobody cared if they were playing with or against Michael Jordan. Everybody wanted to win, and he just brought out the best in everyone.
You mentioned the Last Dance documentary. Have you been watching the HBO series Winning Time on the Lakers 1980s dynasty?
I have.
What do you think about it?
I think they did a great job casting, first of all.
Yeah,
right? Because what's my man name? Isaiah Quincy or something like that. Like, he looks just like Magic.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously Norm Nixon looks just like Norm Nixon because it's Norm Nixon's son playing Norm Nixon.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Right. And I thought they did an outstanding job casting. I thought I'm a basketball historian, so a lot of the things I already knew. I'm not so sure how they portrayed the characters in terms of their personalities. I don't think Jerry West was really like that. I don't think that was a rift between. If you listen to it, Norm Nixon calls Magic Johnson country, right? And so he cracks on him oftentimes about his style of dress and all that. Norm Nixon is from Macon, Georgia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, who the hell is Norm Nixon calling country? And Magic is from Lansing, Michigan, right? So I don't think they had that riff. In any show, they got to put the Hollywood spin on it, right? They got to put the Hollywood spin on it. But I think they're doing a great job of portraying what could potentially happen, because a lot of it is true, from the Tarkanian to the coaching to Paul Westhead to even down to how Pat Riley gets the job, right? And so, not to play spoiler, but all of that will soon be coming. I already know the history of it. Right. And just the personalities of, Magic and Norm and even Jerry Buss, like what he was going through and how he just kind of said, okay, we're going to turn this into Showtime and take this Hollywood theme and just position it around the dancers and the glamour club and so on and so forth. So it was a whole lot going on out there, man. And for them to be able to maintain their focus and achieve what they achieved, I thought it was phenomenal. So I love the documentary. It's one of my favorite things to watch on TV.
Okay. Number one, you grew up in Boston. Were you like a Celtic fan? Even though you were a Steeler fan, you was rooting against those Showtime Lakers, I'm guessing. Still,
Yes. It was really weird because people be like, how you, like, now that I'm in North Carolina, if you don't know I'm from Boston, you don't know I'm from Boston, right? So they be like, how you love the Celtics and how you love the Red Sox, but you are still like that just don't work and it just don't go. But I grew up rooting against the Lakers, man, and it was a house divided. My brother was 5 years older, right? So him and my mom, he's the oldest, I'm the baby. They actually lived in Los Angeles before they moved to Boston and had me, right? Before my mom had me. So he's a Lakers fan. He's a Magic phenomenon. And I'm like, so it was a house divided. And I grew up in the housing project with some guys by the name of New Edition as well, right? And so they became these incredible entertainers. And one of their music videos they had was called My Secret. And they shot the video with the Lakers and Magic Johnson, but they crazy Boston fans. So everybody gave them heat for that. Like, you can't be shooting no music video with no damn Magic. Like, it was that crazy where we were from. But yeah, I'm a Steelers fanatic, Celtics fan, and also a Red Sox fan.
What was it like watching those 1980s Lakers Celtics matchups with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson? Have you ever got the chance to meet Larry Bird?
Yeah. I've met him maybe 3 or 4 times, right? And I had cousins that played on a high school team called Cambridge Ridge Latin, and the star of that team was a guy by the name of Patrick Ewing, right? So they were really, really good in high school, and they had to play all of their high school games at the Boston Garden during Pat Ewing's tenure. I think they were like 77-1. In 3 years, right? And so, and Boston is really small. It's a large city, but it's really small. If everyone knows everyone, and everyone respects one another, especially the star athletes and those who have made a significant name for themselves. And so, but to answer your question, what it was like, it was just a war. It was, when you go on the Strip, in Roxbury, you're going to rock Adidas and you're going to wear Celtic gear. That's what it is. Like, you're going to wear the green and white and you're extremely, extremely passionate about it. And you hate the Lakers, right? You just hate the Lakers. Like, it's embedded in you to be from Boston and hate the Lakers. It's almost like the Steelers and the Ravens. It's almost like Duke, Carolina. Like, you're going to hate the Lakers. And you're cheering, like the Steelers, we're cheering for 2 teams every week, right? We're cheering for the Steelers, and we're cheering for whoever playing against the Ravens. And you're probably cheering for whoever play against the Cowboys because you hate the Cowboys too. Matter of fact, we might hate the Cowboys more than we hate the Ravens, but that's a whole nother podcast that we will talk about, right? So it's that, but that's the hate. That's what this sport does to you, and that's what that rivalry does to you as well. So that's what it was, man. But the crazy thing about Boston, and watching the Celtics teams, I could identify more with the Lakers personally.
Of course.
Right? I could just identify. So I loved Magic and I respected Magic and I loved James Worthy and I respected him, but I just didn't want him to beat Boston. I wanted him to play great, but I loved Magic's flair and his smile and charm and all that because I thought he brought that passion to the game. And I loved what Norm Nixon did and Coop and all those guys and Kareem and Jamal Wilkes. I loved all of them, but I also respected the hell out of Larry Bird and his work ethic, right? They always say it'll never be another Michael Jordan, never be another LeBron. I always say it'll never be another Larry Bird. It'll never be someone who can't run, can't jump, and not quick that's dominating the game of basketball the way he did, right? And so it's just...
Yeah, 2 guys like that.
Kevin
McHale. He had his career, he had a foot problem.
Right.
That 87 finals, was it 87?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had the broken foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that may have been the difference in that series. Even that was the year I was born, but I watched
the historian.
I'm a historian too.
But you know what? And that's crazy that you said that, right? Because that was an incredible Celtics team. And oftentimes, I think that 86 team, people thought that was the greatest Celtics team ever. But and I tell people this all the time. In the midst of all this Michael Jordan talk, right? And Mike was like incredible, right? Arguably the best player to ever play the game. But you know what gets lost all the time? And they talk about his 6 titles and so on and so forth. Like,
I mean, can I say something? I'm probably going to see where you're going with this. Len Bias.
That's what the Celtics was missing, right? If Len Bias would have lived, and I don't want to be the coulda, shoulda, woulda guy, but Lord, this guy was unreal. And now you couple that with the other tragedy with Reggie Lewis, because Reggie already gave Mike fits. Like if you go back and look at tapes, like they gave Mike fits. That's where the Celtics hit a bump in the road, right? We couldn't recover from those 2 tragedies. And it was so bizarre that because Lynn was going to give us the athletic boost that we needed to compete with Mike. The thing that Mike had over everyone when he got in the league, every night he walked onto the floor, he was the most athletic guy. You know what I'm saying? Like it don't matter who he was playing against. He was the most athletic guy, and he just toyed with people. But he couldn't have done that to Lynn.
Yeah, I was born in 1994, so I wasn't allowed to see Bird, but just watching the highlights and stuff, he's an incredible passer. Like, do you think he's the best passer of all time, or do you have someone else in mind as far as?
Yeah, I think he's one of them. I think, man, it's crazy, but I really think LeBron is the best passer of all time, right? If you look at his highlight tape, you look at. Because that for everything that they say about LeBron, his greatest skill set is his ability to pass the ball. And Magic did it first. And if you look at Magic's best highlight passes of his life, like it's like a 10-minute video of him doing this, whatever. But you look at LeBron's tape, he's doing the exact same thing, right? It's just the 2022 version of it, right? But I think where I give Bron the edge over Magic in terms of passing, he could make some athletic passes that Magic just wasn't athletic enough to make. I seen Bron jump up from one corner and leave his feet and zip it across the floor like a bullet, on time, on target, and the shooter's red. Like Magic couldn't make those passes because you got to have some hang time to even jump up there and be able to survey and see the floor, right? All our coaches ever taught us was don't jump up and make a pass because when you leave your feet, you ain't athletic enough to survey the entire floor. That's out the door with Bron. Like he was capable of doing that. And his velocity on the basketball was just incomparable to anyone else. So that's why I give Bron the nod in terms of passing. But it's been some great passes. Mark Jackson, Isaiah, John Stockton, Chris Paul. Like, man, we got some guys that can really play this game and pass this basketball.
All
right, let's see. I know you follow NBA. So, who do you think is gonna? Who's coming out of the West? Phoenix is getting bit. They lost the other night, but they're the favorites. Hopefully, Devin Booker gets healthy. Who do you think's coming out of East? Who's gonna take it all?
Celtics for me. Like whatever you ask is gonna be Celtics. That's a great question, Brandon. And I'll say this too. Health is so important. Health. I don't care what you've done. If you're not healthy and your best players are not healthy, you're in trouble. Like you're just in trouble. And so now Phoenix have went from favorites to they're going to be in a dogfight every game because Dev is out. That's your potential NBA player of the year. I mean, MVP, and he's out. So now everything is neutral, right? And it's one of the things I'll be completely honest. It's one of the things I admire most about Mike with the Steelers, right? Because that sport is so barbaric that in 16 weeks, I don't care how you playing, somebody's going to get hurt. You know what I'm saying? And 9 times out of 10, that somebody is going to be somebody that you desperately need, right? And it's just, on paper, the roster looks good. But by the time the playoffs come, somebody is dinged up and battered up, and now you calling people off the practice team to come in and do that. Like, it's really, really hard. And I don't care what you do and who you are. There's no substitute for your best player because he's special for a reason. He's special because he's rare. right? Unicorns are rare. You don't go see two of them. You're lucky if you see one of them, but you can't go back and get two of them. So that's one thing I admire always about Mike, because his spirits never get down. I'd be like, wow, if our quarterback or our star receiver or somebody, our defense get, this guy done suffered this injury and that injury, I'm like, man, damn. In basketball, that would drive me crazy. Might be like, next man up. We're like, what? He like, next man up. Like, no, we got to cry. We got to have a ceremony for this guy. Like, when is he coming back? He just be like, next man up. And that's one thing I've learned from him, whether you like it or not. Pouting and crying and whining about it, it's not going to matter. You got to prepare everyone on your basketball team and everyone on your football team the same, because those opportunities will present themselves and require for that next man up to be in that position. And it's happened to me every year in basketball. On paper, it looks really good. But now someone caught COVID, or someone sprained the ankle, or someone got a hamstring, or someone caught COVID again. And now this walk-on got to come out here and fulfill that. And so he's just as qualified. He's not a better basketball player, but he's just as qualified, and he got to be ready. So, that's one of the things I learned from Mike as well.
And probably the last question. I saw you guys at North Carolina Central. You guys had a ESPN documentary. How'd that go? I think it came out last year, right?
Yeah, it was really incredible, man. It was during the pandemic, and Chris, me and Chris Paul, we've been friends for quite some time, and it was during the pandemic, and it was a couple of production companies started calling me back to back, and I was like, damn, why are these production companies calling me? And it's because they wanted to do a documentary. Now, this was on the heels of the George Floyd situation, right? So I think there was a lot of guilt with a lot of people to say, okay, let's start covering HBCUs and, all that type stuff, and start making these statements and cherry picking Martin Luther King quotes and all this type stuff. Well, Chris called me and he said, man, big bro, we got to do this documentary. And I was like, what kind of documentary? Because the truth is, I'm really a private person. I'm on social media. I let you see what I want you to see, but we're really boring over here. So any cameras coming in here, like, you'll be highly disappointed with the life that my wife and my two kids and my dog live. Like, you'd be like, yo, this is no kind of entertainment. Let me get out of here. And we're not going to be putting on for no camera and starting foolish arguments. So I didn't know where Chris was actually going with it. And he said, man, I want to do a story on you. And I said, well, include my team. That'll make it way more interesting. And he said, all right, cool. And a week later, he got Bob Iger on the phone from president of Disney and ESPN. He said, man, I love you. Let's make a deal. So we did it. And it was great, man. Like, it was a COVID year, so it was a disaster in terms of playing. Like, we couldn't even make it back to the floor. Like, it was so bad. Like, I think we missed a total of 64 days, and we had to deal with that adversity, and I had to keep their spirits up. And again, I called Mike because I was like, how are you doing that up there? And football is it's much more intimate, right? Like, you're hitting people all the time. I got to worry about 13, 14 people. He had to worry about, not only 52, but the practice squad and the staff. And I'm assuming when they travel on the road, they might be 150 people deep. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you make it with all those people? And again, it was the next man up mentality. And he just did an outstanding job of leading that football team and those men. And it kind of just, filtered back to me. So even during the documentary, even though it wasn't the basketball performance that we wanted, people love it to this day because I was giving them the life lessons, right? Because one day that ball going to stop bouncing for the guys that I coach, and they got to be great fathers and leaders and husbands and things of that nature. And I hold them accountable. The first thing I tell recruits is, don't come here if you don't want to be held accountable every day, right? Everyone always says, man, this generation of kids soft. But it's not the generation of kids that's soft. It's the people in the leadership positions that's soft, right? These are the same kids that kids are going to be kids. They're going to try to get away with what they can get away with. You did it. I did it. My kids are doing it. Their kids are going to do it. That's what kids do. The problem is we as adults and people in leadership positions have compromised with them, right? So even from the parenting, we're so busy trying to give these kids what we didn't have that we forget to give them what we did have, right? And so when you look at our documentary, I'm just being completely honest, but I think it came across as refreshing to people to say some may say it's old school or whatever it is, but it's just the truth. And I just look people in their face and I look them in their eyes and tell them the truth, right? Because I'm not coaching the 99% of kids that's going to go play professional basketball out here. That ball is going to stop bouncing. And when it do, you got to be a productive citizen and be readily prepared to go out here and contribute in this world. So I kind of use basketball as a metaphor, to do that. And, it was received with open arms and people have loved it to this day. So the documentary was great.
Brent, do you have anything else?
I wish you good luck on this next season. You are awesome.
Yeah. Thank you,
You're
brother.
probably one of the favorite person that we had on here. Gave us great insight. I'm usually the one that I apologize if I cut you off, but I know about that Len Bias story because I'm from PG County.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a year before I was going up, like the anti-drug stories. That was the story.
Yeah.
So he was. I want to say a martyr to but in a way he was.
Yeah.
For guys who grew up and people like with me about not doing doing drugs and stuff like that. So
right. Not to pivot on you, but you guys are crazy Steelers fans too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who are you hoping we draft this year?
Okay. They should just draft the best player available. Yeah. I know everybody wants the quarterback, but you just got to be the best. You just got to get the best player that makes you good this year. Because that's what it's about. We talk about Tomlin, 15 years. I think he's getting drafted and figure it out with Trubisky. But pressure's on Tomlin because he doesn't have Ben. He has that 15 straight years, has that losing season in 15 years. You can attest most of that is because of Ben. So if you want to draft a quarterback, fine. I would go for probably go for a lineman, probably a middle linebacker. I like that Nakobe Dean from Georgia. I also like Jaquan Brisker from Penn State. He used a safety to replace Edmonds. But just take the best player available to impact the Steelers of 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, they have so many needs. I think I agree. Just best player. I'm not really too high on the quarterback class, but I am intrigued by Malik Willis, but I don't know if
you think he's going to be there.
I don't think he's going to.
I don't think he's going to.
I think they're going to have to trade up if they want. I know Tomlin really likes him. Everybody's saying I like his. And Tomlin's been raving about quarterback mobility, and I think Willis would be a good fit. But I think he's going in the top 10.
Yeah, everybody needs a quarterback. Some teams are going to convince themselves before the Steelers to pick him, and that's what's going to happen.
Do you think so? If Pickett's there, I haven't seen a lot of Pickett, but if he's there, do you think they take him or just get the best available?
Maybe.
The pressure's going to be there. The pressure's going to be there to pick him, but it's just going to be. I don't think they should.
Yeah, Brandon's not high on Pickett.
Because I covered a little bit of Pitt last year, and I saw him play. He's great. He's a great player. He's a great college player, but the small hands, I don't think he's all great. I think he has a ceiling. The other quarterbacks don't.
I think this is the hardest part of the job, and that's evaluating. Because the reality is, you think you know, but you don't. You really don't know. You're taking a educated guess, and sometimes the definites end up being the possibles, and the possibles end up being the definites, right? Nobody thought, and I'll use this guy for example. I'm willing to. Nobody thought T.J. Watt would be who T.J. Watt is.
Oh yeah. I remember.
I thought he'd be pretty good. He has a Hall of Fame brother, so I thought if he was half as good as his brother, that's pretty daggone good.
Yeah, I think he was.
Well, his other brother has Hall of Fame brothers, but his other brother ain't.
Okay, all right.
Oh yeah.
You follow
All
what
right,
I'm saying?
too, but
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I remember T.J. Watt coming across, like, and this is the only thing I ever say about it. Mike said, "Vel, that boy's special." And the way he looked at me, I was like, "Oh shit, okay." Like, he said, "Yo, that boy's special." I didn't see it, right? Because as much as we love football, what I found out is that we don't have the eyes that they have for it to look at. You know what I'm saying? Like it's real because we do it as basketball. So as basketball coaches, when we're recruiting, sometimes we just miss. I'm like, damn, how did we miss on this kid? Right? We saw him 10 times. He was great, but now he's just not great in front of 10,000 people. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes you just miss. And I think this is the toughest part of the job is being able to evaluate. Now, some of them no-brainers, right? And a lot of times some of the no-brainers are the ones that you kind of all agree upon, right? That my mom could say, okay, he's going to be the best one in the draft. But when you get to that second and third round, and I think that's what the Steelers have always done. Like you looking at an AB, what was AB? 6, 7?
Sixth round.
one,
Nobody thought that.
What is it? What was his exact pick, Chris? 195. Was it 199 or 194?
I want to say 195, but I'm not too sure.
195?
It was somewhere around that area.
Right. And that's really been a lot of the great ones that we've always had, right? What was Starworth, right? Like, and I know I'm going.
He was a 4th round pick.
4th round, right?
4th round. It was Lentz one was the 1st round. The second one was Franco Harris. They had 2 first rounders. You had Jack Ham.
You talking about the 74th?
And it was Stallworth. I don't know. They had them 4, and Donnie Shell was an undrafted free agent that year too.
Yeah, I was going to get to Donnie. Donnie was undrafted, right? But like it's just so hard, man. To look at Hines. Who had Hines ranked? Like, look at Hines.
Third round pick, yeah.
Right? Hines ain't do nothing. Like Hines didn't. His combine test, I'm willing to see that because what was Hines, a 4.6?
Oh yeah. I'm not too sure, but
he's always open.
Yeah, that's why they found out he didn't have an ACL or something.
Right now, he missing an MCL joint. Like it's just really, really crazy, man. Like I'm telling you, it's the hardest part of the business because I have to go through it too as a recruiter. Right. And so that's why I'm always interested. And that's what I really wanted a lot of help with. Because I think Mike and Kevin is phenomenal at just evaluating the talent and having a system, especially with all this analytics and stuff like that. Right. So now it just becomes even more complicated with all the numbers and the analytics, and nothing passes the eye test of it. You see what I'm saying? Like nothing passes the eye, because just think about something. Even the quote unquote experts, and I don't know who these guys are, it was the weirdest thing to me. Lamar Jackson, his junior year, won the Heisman. Was it his junior year or sophomore? Sophomore, I'm sorry.
Sophomore.
Lamar Jackson won the Heisman Trophy his sophomore year. Now, last time I checked, the Heisman Trophy was given to the best player in college football. They said that man should become a wide receiver after winning Heisman Trophy in college. So you're the best player at your position in college, but now when you go pro, you need to switch positions because you're not good at it. Like, what kind of shit is that? Right? Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, so it's all over the place, and it can get really, really tricky and really, really hectic because you have all these quote unquote experts, right? But these experts, they never really played the game, right? So that's what makes it, but they feed the information, and we're all subject to receive the information because that's what social media is. It preys on you on the 7 deadly sins. So you're logging on, you're putting Steelers in the search bar, Steelers draft. You want to see who's this. Boy, don't let, if the Honey Badger name is mentioned, we refresh that so many times, hoping he has something with it. Right? We lose our mind with all this stuff, man. And I'm like, damn it. Who is good? And what you think about the Honey Badger? Let's talk about that.
Oh, if they could land,
they could get him. That would be good.
That'd be great.
That'd be a good pickup. Him and Fitzpatrick in the same back and the same secondary. Fitzpatrick could go back to playing center field, while the Matthew could do his thing on the line of scrimmage, and then you still got T.J. Watt and you still got Cameron Hayward. I think it's the Shaq and Kobe of defensive players in the NFL.
But do we need another interior presence on the line, defensive line?
That was another thing I was looking at. They could draft on the defensive line. That was another thing. They had a kid they had this big lineman from Georgia they could use.
Yeah, I like him. Is he going? I don't know if he's going to be around.
I think he'll be around.
Who, Jordan Davis or the?
Yeah, Jordan Davis. But that Walker kid, he's going top 5. But him, you can use him. There's quite a few lines. They could use some depth at least some depth pieces on the defensive line.
Yeah, I like the kid from Alabama, the wide receiver. I hope we can get him in the second round. That tore his knee.
Yes.
But I like him because I think we need someone who can stretch that field.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right? You need someone who can stretch that field, right? And open some things up. That's always critical. So Chase and Deontay can, do what they do a little bit too, right? And so anytime you got a burnout out there, man, it just helps. A large part of the success, and I don't think he got a lot of credit while he was here, but when Mike Wallace was here, just every 2 plays let him run 50 yards, right? That opened up a lot of seams out there, man. So there's no replacement for speed. But we armchair quarterback, so it's easy for us to sit back here and draft. We undefeated drafting back here, but our livelihood is not dependent on it. But I think we got some good prospects, man. I think we're in a good position. We got some good prospects. I like what we did in free agency. We upgraded the line. I like what we did, and I just think
Jack. Miles Jack.
Oh yeah,
big pickup. Yeah. He's probably the best player in the league.
About Miles. Yeah.
Best player. I think he's one of the best linebackers in the league that hasn't made a Pro Bowl pro because he's been playing in Jacksonville.
Is he gonna play inside?
Yeah, he'll be next.
Yeah, he's playing inside.
I forgot about Miles Jack.
Yeah. I forgot. I was thinking about the offensive line because I know they upgraded there, but it should be interesting. I know Mitch Trubisky. He might be the bridge quarterback, depending on if he still might be, even if they draft a quarterback in the first round. But I'm hoping they get the next franchise quarterback. If not this year, then they're saying next year's draft is supposed to be a lot better. But
so you're trusting. Here's the predicament, and here's the tough thing about the Steelers, right? Every quarterback was a Heisman Trophy winner in our division, except for ours.
Yeah,
I made it really, really difficult, right? And the way the rules are set up now, I think the steel curtain days and things like that, I think that's gone, right?
Yeah, you can't trend dope for your way to Super Bowls anymore.
You can't do it, right? And it's crazy. And this is why I don't know if you guys know this. Mel Blount's son came to North Carolina Cebtral and was my player of the year in the conference. Unreal, right? Jabri Blount. When I say, I gotta say this. Jabri Blount is one of the best human beings I've ever coached in my life. Right? Mel Blount has done and his wife has done a phenomenal job of raising young men. You see what I'm saying? Like, you don't see this anymore. And to the point, I still got a great relationship with Mel. We talk, he's incredible, man. Like, I wish I could have every parent like Mel Blount, right? But I forgot what I was saying because I was just bragging on Mel Blount. But I was going to say, gone are the days where you can do the Mel Blount outside the numbers, right? Because that don't take the receiver after 5 yards. That's the Mel Blount rule, right? Because Mel was just power driving and killing. And I don't know if you've seen Mel up close, right? But he's probably
I heard.
Yeah, I've heard too. Yeah, I've
like, who the hell? Like, no receivers had no chance. Like, he's 6'5", 6'6", man. Like, strong. I'm like, them dudes didn't have a chance to get off the line of scrimmage against him.
He still looks like he could play it even today.
Oh, he's in shape, looks great, man. Like he's just a good old country boy, man, who enjoy life, man. But I'm gonna come up and check out a couple of Steelers games this year, man. So
and they're gonna be back in Latrobe now. They just announced yesterday that they're gonna have training camp there. So that's good news to hear.
Yeah, I had never, like, the first year I was just like, how did all these people come out here just to see? It's the craziest stuff every single day. Yeah. So I get up there now. I stay like 2 or 3 days. Then I gotta go, man. I said I can't do this no more. Like, I gotta go back. But it's a heck of an experience. Just eating in the cafeteria, right? I had my point guard at the time. I FaceTimed him because I wanted him to see the work ethic of AB, right? For all whatever it's worth. After every practice, man, AB would go on that gun and catch 100 footballs. You know what I'm saying? And I told my point guard, like, yo, this boy works, man. Like, I've never seen anybody work like that. And it wasn't for show. He did that every time after both practices. I was like, yeah. So it's going to pay off for him, man. So, it was great. It was great. So let's circle back, man. Anytime you guys need me.
Well, appreciate you taking the time. This is great. A lot of good insight, on Tomlin and basketball. Everything was just really good information and everything. I hope our listeners enjoyed the podcast. What's your social? So we'll follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, it's at Levelle Moton. LEVELLEMOTON.
Okay. All right, that's Moton.
I just hope that people actually listen to it and actually learn.
Oh yeah,
from this podcast. This is more of an educational podcast. You see me, I usually act wild and ratchet a little bit, but I just let this man do his thing, be intelligent, great coach, great leader of men, great man of the community. I salute you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. All the best to you guys, and if you need me, I'm here, all right?
We'll make sure to add you once we have the podcast uploaded, and we'll probably get a couple clips out too. We'll make sure to tag you into that.
Let's do it, my man. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, take care.
My guy.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at @RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on renegadeblitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The Renegade Blitz podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts.